and see, hey, just how it used to be. Hey, come along with me. Let your spirit run free along the old Black Nile. Good afternoon, Washington, D.C. This is Tony Browder welcoming you to another edition of the Browder File Show. I trust everyone had a relaxing Labor Day weekend. Mine was pretty good. I went up to New Jersey, Red Bank, New Jersey, to visit some friends, and I'd like to give a happy birthday shout out to Aunt Ruth, who I had the pleasure of meeting Sunday evening, watching more specifically, watching her husband perform. Her husband, Al, was a drummer for Sun Ra, and Ruth was a vocalist for Sun Ra's band. So it was a pleasure meeting them, and I wish the happiest of birthdays to Aunt Ruth. Well, today is a special show. I know I say that about all of my shows, and I mean it with every show that I've done thus far. Today's show is special because of a special guest who I'm honored to have on the show. I've been thinking about having him as a guest for several months now, and I was so pleased that he was available for today. My guest today is an expert in the philosophical aspects of cultural difference. As a matter of fact, he wrote the book on cultural competency in a pluralistic and multicultural society. He is an industrial psychologist and is one of the founding members of the National Association of Black Psychologists. He has been a mentor, or should I say, Jegna, to such luminaries as Wade Nobles, Naeem Akbar, Asa Hilliard, Frances Cress Welsing, Patricia Newton, and Joy DeGruy. He is an esteemed elder and someone who I've had the pleasure of calling a friend and teacher and guide for nearly 4 decades. I'd like to welcome to the Browder File Show my dear friend, Dr. Edwin J. Nichols. How are you doing today, sir?
Good afternoon, Tony. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm well.
Hey, Washington.
I've dreamt of having you on the show and just creating a forum where you could share some of your wisdom with our listeners. We're certainly living in um, some uncharted times now. And I know that there are people listening to this show who could benefit from the knowledge that you have about human nature, human development, and how people work together. So I want to give you the flexibility to do Dr. Edwin J. Nichols. Talk about who you are and the work that you've become famous for and why this work is so relevant in today's political climate. So take it away.
Okay, before we do that, so that nobody shoots shoots me and kills me, I have all the people that you named. I was a friend to. My mentorship only goes maybe to Joy DeGruy at the early part of her career, and the others. We were all members of the Association of Black Psychologists, and then with
Francis Wilson?
Frances, those were friends, and she was studying at the time and writing her book. And then the psychiatrist up in Baltimore,
Dr. Newton.
Dr. Newton. Now, Dr. Newton, I gave her her first externship in psychiatry while I was working at the National Institute of Mental Health.
Mhm.
And that was back in 68, 1968, 69. So that I just want to clear that up so I don't get any nasty mail from any of these people telling me who you didn't do that for me. I don't want to clear all that up. Now that that's
Okay.
clear,
All right. Crystal clear. Thank you so much for that clarity. I appreciate it.
seriously, we were all very good friends. We've all worked very hard in this field to try to understand the environment in which we find ourselves. Um, we every single name every single person that you named has been raised with the idea that if you get a good education and you work hard, you're mobile. And the reality is that for generations, African Americans have worked very hard, got an excellent education, and there are two things that should happen. One is you are acculturated. So all the people that you name are acculturated in American culture and society. The semicolon, however, comma, comes at the fact that we have not been assimilated. When the Italians first came here, the Jews first came here, the Irish first came here, they were not classified as white. And so there are two books. One is when the Irish became white and when Jews became white. They're two different books. But it talks about a point at which the general society in the United States did not classify them as white. And it was a long time before East Europeans, Poles, Slavs, and so forth, were ever considered white.
So if they weren't white, what were they?
They were, no, white is a privilege. It's not the complexion.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you have attained, they were considered to be not white in the sense that they were, oh, those dirty Italians or those ignorant Poles or or the stupid Irish. All of those different kinds of things were the adjectives that preceded their nationality. The nationality was what was the important dependent variable.
Mm-hmm.
But once they've been here and became acculturated, which generally was their children that were born here or raised here,
Mm-hmm.
that acculturation said that they knew about baseball, they could sing American songs, they liked ice cream and all those kinds of things, and had a fluency in the language. They were then assimilated. Now, the level of assimilation could be like a factory worker or a day laborer. But once you were acculturated, you could be assimilated. But when you look at the Black bourgeoisie or any of those books, you can see that there were elitist elements of Black people that had been completely acculturated in every aspect, opera, anything that Western society said is the top of it, grammar, poetry, literature, science. Well, yes, we had all those, and we still do. But the semicolon, however, comma, is they will not, in spite of our acculturation, they will not assimilate us into the stream. And that assimilation means to confer upon us whiteness. That's the privilege. It isn't, it has nothing to do with complexion. It's just the idea that you are a part of this great group.
Mm-hmm.
Others come here and they can accomplish that. Now, all the friends that we talked about, Francis Welsing was like third generation physician.
True.
Okay, so, and music and so on. And what did she get for her graduation trip to Germany to study or look and what have you? Well, how many white folks get that?
True, that's true.
Okay, all right. So she and her family, she comes from a family of thoroughly acculturated people. But unfortunately, she nor any of these relatives were ever assimilated into the American mainstream.
But tell us about the American mainstream. What is that, and what makes the American mainstream so significantly different?
Well, the American mainstream is a phenomena of whiteness and white privilege. And when we go back, it's all economics and capitalism. Okay, if you want to maintain a workforce, see, when everyone first came here, we were all indentured servants serving 7 years and then you were out. But if you go back to the Virginia slave laws, and they're easily accessible on the net, on the web, you can get them and you'll see progressively they take more and more rights away from Blacks so that they can divide the poor white indentured servants from the poor Black indentured servants. That was the big fear was there was a battle and in Jamestown,
Hmm.
and they burned it down. And that because the blacks and whites and Indians all got together and fought the British and the British Army and defeated them. So now we have a real fear if these groups get together as landowners, we won't have anyone to do the work. Now you have to remember that these first people coming over that owned land, like George Washington's family, were a part of the British nobility. They might have been way down on the list, but they were a part of it anyway. That's why they got the charters to own the land that they did from the crown. The misperception that they had, that's why they all starved to death and died at Jamestown, that first crew practically, was because they were now landowners. They felt that the crown would send them
Mm.
supplies and so forth. But, the crown didn't, you own land, but that's all still the crown's land. So
So
but
they were left to fend for themselves.
they were left to fend for themselves and they didn't do very well at it.
All right. And so that necessitated the need for indentured servants who would then work for them for a prescribed period of time. But then
Yeah,
after those indentured servants came together to work for their collective benefits, they had to create another wedge to divide those poor indentured servants so that they would never overthrow their oppressors. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Let me give you one example. Women did the washing of clothes for everyone. You had white women who did washing. They were previously an indentured servant. And you had black women. But very quickly, whatever the black women earned, they put a tax on it.
Mm.
Okay? So if you made $1 in a week, then 80 cents went to the black woman and the full dollar went to the white woman. Now you're beginning to see an economic differentiation starting that far back. And if you look now, the wage between black women and white women, there's this differential.
Sure.
Okay. So those are the issues that start us on this path of white privilege, is to keep the workers divided.
So how do you overcome this division, or more specifically, how do you navigate earning a decent wage given the structural racism that is built into the very essence of this country?
Okay, the union was as close to doing that because everyone earned the same amount of money through the union. The unions equalized the pay. Now, the semicolon, however, comma, is the banks did the redlining,
Mm.
and the government itself redlined, saying that you can't live in this section or this is the Jim Crow laws. And in the North, it was redlining.
Mhm.
So if you look at the Baltimore and see how all the blacks are crowded into one small space. So even though you earned a lot of money on the job, equal to the white person, you had to live in an apartment. So how do you demonstrate your affluence? You buy a new car every year, Cadillac, Lincoln, and park it in front of your apartment or boarding house or what have you. Or you buy flashy clothes and jewelry and are you beginning to see how that those behaviors come into reality?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you couldn't get your own stores because you need loans to open a store. And of
So,
course, you may not get the license because if some other group comes into your community, they get the license.
mm.
How many Raisin in the Sun, they were struggling to get a liquor license. Now, why would you have to struggle to get a liquor license in the Black community? It's because other people were in your community with liquor license making money.
so let's follow that logic then, Dr. Nichols. What you're saying is that racism is so endemic to this society that there were barriers placed to limit how we lived and moved within the society. How do you deal with that as a psychologist? How do you deal with that, or how have you come up with techniques for people to negotiate these spaces?
Well, I think that's what we're still trying to learn.
Hmm.
Um, you can use denial like it doesn't occur, or you can build communities in which your children are safe um, and secure in this little cocoon. You have many situations in the South where children were raised within the all-Black community. And I lived in Detroit, Michigan, and I was in a all-Black community. I was in a cocoon. The church, the school, the YMCA, everything was right there in that Black community. My doctor was Black, my dentist was Black, everybody was Black.
Mhm.
And everyone was living uh, middle class, if not upper middle class. Now, Detroit is a blue collar town. It's a factory town, but people raise their children as middle class. My elementary school had three separate units. It had its own auditorium, its own gymnasium, and its own swimming pool in an elementary school. Now, if you go to the richest suburbs here today, they have a common room where you have your lunch, that's your gym, and they have a curtain for your auditorium. And all of those take place in one room. We had three separate rooms for that.
Sure.
Okay. When I go to junior high school, they have orchestra and band. Every student that wanted to study violin had a violin that you could take home on the weekend. Now, how many violins, violas, cellos, bass, bassoon, all these, how many of those would you have to have in a junior high school? And we had them and they were free.
Mm.
Now, if you think that way, what were they raising? They were raising upper middle class children on the salary of factory workers. So was the that was a way in which we survived. Now, Detroit is different because there were large numbers of Blacks in Detroit. And we couldn't buy all over the city of Detroit. That's where we had the riots. People had a lot of money and were pushing to get out of that confinement of the ghettos. And the ghettos were horrible when the defense factory started. And before the defense factory started, um, you an older relative would come to the north from someplace.
Mhm. Someplace in the South,
Yes, and
typically. Yes.
she'd get a place, and then all the relatives would come one after the other, and they would stay in, sleep on the couch or sleep someplace else or sleep wherever you could until they could get on their footing and get another room someplace. And what happened is, and that's why we had the major riot in Detroit, people began to earn money from the defense factories, and they wanted to move out of the constraints of the redlining and the ghetto. But instead of giving us more places to live, they subdivided and subdivided again all of the places in which we did live. So the building in which I lived was an original three-story building with two flats on either side. So that's six and a half room flats in this building. Two on the first floor, two on the second, two on the third. Now the situation became so distressed that more people needed space, more people needed space, more people needed space. So they divided the 6-room place into two 3-room apartments.
Hmm.
Now here's the collusion of the system. The room that they had for trunks, in those days there was no storage, so you had a very small room, maybe 5 by 5 or something like that. that you put these large wardrobe trunks in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That was converted into a bathroom. So you had a triangular sink in a corner, you had a stool, and you had a 4-foot bathtub. Now, the law requires that for ventilation, you have a window in the bathroom or you have an opening that goes into a vent that's sunk through the center of the building to let all the odors out. You could not sink a shaft into the building because it would take up too much room. You wouldn't have a bathroom. All right. So I'm this little boy, maybe 4, maybe 3.5, and a white man comes to the door. Now, why am I saying a white man? Because you don't have white people coming into your community. When you see somebody white, it's, who is he? Is he might be an insurance man, but we had our own insurance people.
Mm-hmm.
It might be police. Well, who is it? What are they doing in our community? So this white man said he was a carpenter and he had come to take care of the bathroom. But he had to go downstairs and get his horses and he would be back. Now, when you're 3.5, horses are something that
You're thinking of the animal and not
I
the,
could not
yeah,
get together
the
in my head
benches.
what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I find my mother explains it to me. He brings these 2 triangular things upstairs. He takes the door of the bathroom off the hinges, stretches it across these 2 horses, and he drills 3 1-inch holes on the top of the door, 3 1-inch holes on the bottom of the door, puts the door back on, takes his horse. He didn't even sweep up the shavings. And the code of the city code inspector says this is proper ventilation for the bathroom. Now, how did it vent? Out of the bathroom into the living room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that sanitary? Is that what? But you see, the collusion is to keep blacks contained. See?
So let me just let my listeners know that you're listening to the Broader File Show, and my special guest today is Dr. Edwin J. Nichols, a clinical and industrial psychologist. So, Dr. Nichols, you have devised a means by which you can explain this collusion within the state government and the federal government, and is based on a philosophical construct that you coined. Can you share with our listeners that philosophical construct, which evolves around axiology, epistemology, and logic?
Yes. Um, the reason I come to this is because I did all the things, and I had seen that my parents had done all the things to be assimilated. We were certainly acculturated, but we were not assimilated. And I had done all the things to be acculturated, but was not assimilated. And in terms of education for a job, I studied to be an industrial psychologist. And I had all the papers, and I did the internship. Now, the game was the University of Michigan, Michigan State had terminal master's programs that I wanted to be in. And the way they keep you out in the North is not say go to the black school. They put obstacles in your way. So what they say is you have to do a 1-year practicum in a factory. Well, in 1955, in my home state of Michigan, there was no company that would give black Nichols the 1-year practicum to go into a company and show them how to realign their programs, their management systems, their production, so on, to enhance their wealth. None. So the university said to me, it would be unfair for us to accept you, realizing that you could not fulfill the requirements for graduation.
Hmm.
And literally 20 years later, that was still some of the gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
really for the doctorate. I was at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. I was a visiting scholar, visiting professor. There was an Igbo. Now you have to remember that Ibadan, that's the center of Yoruba, and it's a large university. But this Igbo coming out of his, coming back to Nigeria, wanted a job as a PhD industrial or organizational, I now call it organizational psychologist. And I was talking to him and I asked him, well, what about your practicum? How'd you get that? He said, after my best friend graduated, he had me come and do my practicum at his company.
Mm.
Okay. That's literally 20 years later. Now, if I had stayed waiting for it to change, I would never have accomplished it.
Mhm.
Now, here's the strength of the Black church. In my daddy's church, I want you to be clear about this. My daddy is he is AME, all right, African Methodist Episcopal, and Bethel is a big time bougie Black church in Detroit. Okay, and in his church, they had people that had graduated from schools in Europe before World War II. There was a pianist there that had studied at Salzburg.
Mm.
Okay, there were other people there that had studied at different places in Europe. So that was not an it was not an extra something. It was a reality possibility.
Sure.
So now when I can't, this of course is many years later, then the idea of going to study abroad is not out of the realm of possibility. And so that's what I did. Now, why did I, when I do all that, get all the pieces of paper that you're supposed to have, everything that you name, I've got it. And I come back and I'm still not employable in the field. The question is, why? Why? And the worst insult was that I went to Cleveland, Ohio from Detroit. And in this consulting firm, one of my students that I had tutored in Germany had come from Germany and worked in that company, a consulting company in Cleveland, Ohio, for a year. And the reason was to improve his English and find out what we were doing here to take back to Germany.
Mm.
In the intervening variable, I am now got my doctorate, I mean, my master's, and I'm coming back. What he had introduced was so new, nobody here was doing it. And the man who ran the consulting company wanted him to stay. Stay, we'll pay any amount of money. He says, but I don't have my diploma. You don't need a diploma. You don't need, you just stay. He said, no, I have to go back to Germany and get my diploma. But my supervisor just returned to Detroit, Michigan from Germany. Why don't you call him and see if he'll consider coming over to work for you? Well, they called. And of course, on the phone, I'm not identifiable as Black. And when there's a job possibility, it might even go to a more British tonal quality.
Do whatever's required, huh?
Yes, of course. So I get over there and I go in the office, and this woman is typing. She does not look up. It was like I was a Black delivery person, just drop the mail over there with the package and leave. Well, the important thing in European culture is to get attention, you clear your throat. And she didn't look up. So in disdain, you drop your keys, which makes a loud clangle. She looked up. What do you want? I said, I'm Nichols, here to see Mr. Green with reference to a position of psychologist. The person we want is German. I said, German or German speaking? Now, you see, here's the prerogative that this white woman has. She feels that whatever one or two German words that she knows, she can throw them at me to credential my ability to speak German. And what she guttered out, I said, it's obvious that you don't speak German. I do. Would you be kind enough to get Mr. Green? Well, now you can see it's going down from here. I went into the room. There were 11 white men in the room. The one who had the bachelor's degree ran it. He had the money. The other were master level industrial psychologists like I. And this man said, oh, Hans has told us so much about you. And I'm saying to myself, but he didn't tell you everything about me. And we went on and played the game. And he said he had a son that was 26 or 25 or something older than I was. And he never finished college. And he was so happy to see me. Okay, we played the game. Now we began to do the credentialing. He said, I said, here's my diploma. Well, in this country, you could not have gotten the diploma or master's without internship, without practica. I said, well, these are my practical experiences at Mercedes-Benz and Zeiss Icon. Okay, I tested their apprentices. And we talked some more. And then I said, leading him into the trap, what you really want is someone with experience. Absolutely imperative. We couldn't hire any person without experience. I said, well, here are my letters of practical work experience with Ernst Kretschmer at SUVs, and I named the companies that I had done work for him as a consultant. Now, well, let's go to lunch. Now, lunch is traditionally where they make a differentiation in terms of how primitive are you? Are you really acculturated? Do you know how to use a knife and fork? Do you know how to order? Well, that's like throwing the rabbit into the briar patch, baby. That's my game. So we go to this restaurant, and this guy I look at him, and I listen, and I recognize immediately he's not Metropolitan French, he's Algerian, but he's very light skinned. And in my broken French, I kind of explained to him what's going on, and he said, oh. So we had course after course after course, flaming after flaming after flaming, and they had never eaten anything like that in their whole lives. We went back to the office. Then the other guys excused themselves, and he said to me he was very sorry he couldn't hire me because the woman secretary said she would quit before she would work in an office with Negroes. Okay, now I'm in Cleveland with no job and no money and living at the YMCA where everybody lived at that time. Okay, I'm not a proud person. So I went back and there were jobs on a blackboard. All of it had been erased. The only job left at the bottom was short order cook from 9 o'clock, from 11 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning, 6 days a week. All right. I go and I'm in competition with a Creole. Creoles are beautiful. Absolutely stunning. They have the short, beautiful hair, light eyes, high yellow skin, aquiline feet, anything that you want, they have it all. And this is the person I'm in competition with. Now, what I didn't know was the woman who was the matron who owned the company, that was her piece. Okay. So now I'm treated unfair within my own race with colorism, and I'm treated unfair by this white guy. Now, here's the point that starts with all this. All this preparation is why I get to the philosophical aspects of cultural difference.
Okay.
I come downstairs one morning, there's a package waiting for me from this guy. I open it. Here's all the work that Hans has not completed. Complete the work, send it back, parentheses, do not bring it back. Encloses a check, fill in your fee, and cash it. Signed, Green.
So this is the person that you interviewed with who would not hire you because his secretary would quit before she agreed to work for a Negro, but he sent you the work undercover.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I was not steeped in Christian charity then as I am now, and I had many orifices in mind in which he could stuff his check. Okay. The reality was, it hit me. Why would this man think as rudely, as primitively, as hurtfully as he had treated me, that I would do, that he could buy me? Now, if you put that into axiology, he had a value system that was not mine. That's for sure.
Mm.
So axiology is the study of value. So what was his value? His value was the object or the acquisition of the object. For him, he had to get those papers translated into English and get that work done. And whatever it costs, whatever object, you pay it, and then you get the greater object, was you can utilize it.
Mhm.
And I was the accidental. I was the vehicle by which it could be done.
Sure.
All right? Now, from my perspective, my attitude is, which I could die and go to hell before I do that work for you. I'm a MF and your mama too. Okay? So now, why was I acting that way? Because he had destroyed the relationship. He had disrespected me. So in the African axiology, we have the highest value lying in the relationship. And that's because when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first two levels are already met just by the fact of where we lived in Africa at that time. And then the third level is to form relationships.
So what are those first two levels? Inform our listeners.
One is physical, and safety, and the other is what is it? The physical things are like food and
Shelter.
so on, and then there's what I'm blocking on right now. But the third level is where we are.
Okay.
Okay? And that level says that you are seeking relationships for your work or for whatever it is. That's what you're doing at that third level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you see, Maslow's giving you that information that he got from some other one. He observed Native Americans out there in the Pacific Northwest. That was their culture. He
Mhm.
got it and he stacked things up. All right. Now, what I'm sharing is that here's a man who is following his axiology. If I need these papers translated and this work done, then I will pay the object to whomever. I don't care as long as they get the work done. Now, for me, he had treated me with disrespect and there was nothing he could do for me. I don't need your money. I'm working short order cook, 11 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning, 6 days a week. Well, damn it, that's what I'm doing. I don't need your damn money. You shove it up your ass. Okay? Now, now you look at intergenerational things. I call home and my father says, you need to think about it. My mother says, shove it. She's like your mama, okay? Very pragmatic, okay?
Mhm.
All right. My grandmother says, if you don't do it, what will he think?
Mm.
And what will the secretary know that you just didn't know how to do it? That's what she was saying in essence, that you couldn't do it. And then she said, like my mother said, well, charge him triple, you know. My father said, well, think about it. That's my father. You have to think everything over with my father. And my grandmother says, if you charge him a lot, he will feel what? He will
Exploited.
justify. See?
Mhm.
For justify.
Mm.
So I did it. I charged the regular fee and I sent it. And then
Mm.
with my grandmother, you see, this is the hope of those people that were born right after slavery, or some of her relatives were born in slavery.
Mm.
It's like, who can tell in the future what it'll be when somebody else like you comes in the office? It may be different. You may be making a path for someone else,
Opening a door. Mhm.
opening a door.
So
Okay.
how did that situation resolve itself? Did Mr. Green, he accepted the work you did, an outstanding job, I'm sure.
No,
Did
I
he
I
send you
did the
more
work.
work or
I
did he
did the
hire
work.
you?
I did the work, charged the regular price, cashed the check, sent it to him. I sent it by messenger.
Hmm.
You have messengers carried it up to his office, and I never heard another word from him,
Mm.
nothing at all. And that was it. But you see, I had to have that experience to find out. Now I'm figuring in my mind, you only have a master's. Of course, you need a what?
PhD.
PhD. So I get a scholarship from the Austrian Ministry of Education. I go back to get my doctorate. And I get it. And I have it with honors and all of these things. And I come back, but I'm still what?
Still black,
Yes,
living
which
in
means
America.
I'm not assimilated. I'm acculturated, but not assimilated. I typed 5 carbons, my PhD thesis dissertation in German on a German typewriter. 5 carbons. Okay. Yet I'm not acculturated into American system. I'm not assimilated into the system. Acculturated, but not assimilated. Now, I come back, Flint, Michigan is General Motors headquarters, and they have a college there. And they were trying to expand the college and get more experience for the people that were going to the school, as well as to try to get high school students to be willing to come into the training, like a junior college in that college, to train to get certain jobs in the industry of General Motors. My doctoral dissertation is on apprenticeship programs.
Mm.
All right. Who's better for the job? Well, I send my papers up to Flint, and the man in charge of psychology reads them, and he is just ecstatic. I mean, it's like I had dropped just from heaven and I was his. Well, he says, you drive up right away. I've just got to see him. He went on and on and on. I drove up. When I got out of the car, he was a little cool. I went into the office. I'm all excited. This isn't very far from Detroit. And then finally, I say to him, I've gone through every paper I have. I said, well, is there something missing, or do you want me to translate something, or what's going on? And he said, you have everything that I could want or need, more than I could have expected. But you should not have applied. You're a Negro.
Hmm.
Okay, so assimilated, but not acculturated. I'm sorry, acculturated,
But
but
not
not
assimilated.
assimilated into the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, Dr. Nichols, because we've got about 10 to 12 minutes left on the show. I would like for you to summarize your experiences and interpret the state that we're living in now. Now that diversity, equity, and inclusion have been banned by this current administration, people have lost their jobs, they've lost their self-esteem. I'd like for you to help me and help our listeners understand how we got here and how we can navigate this new social and cultural landscape.
Okay, we are dealing with entrenched racism. That's not new. But we are facing a fascist takeover to accomplish what the country wants, which is to remain a white country. If statistics continue and populations continue to go as they are, then by 2050, or if not before, the majority will become the minority population in the country. And that reality is untenable if you are white. So what do you need to do to produce more white children? Well, you get rid of abortions,
Hmm.
you question the pill, the day after pill, you begin to put constraints on those. And now this is attacking white women who don't want to be pregnant all the time. So get a little pushback. But you keep repeating the same lie over and over again. What is the lie that you tell the men in the 1970s and 80s that lost their factory jobs in the Rust Belt across there? What do you tell them? I'm going to give you your jobs back. I'm going to bring back the factories to the United States. We're going to have the factories here for you to have a job. Well, they're too old now, but their children are not having any of those jobs, and their children are not educationally prepared. That's why everyone is saying, oh, you don't have to go to college, because
Mhm.
some of them went to college. You only need to go to community college and get a trade. Or in the high school, we're going to give you, in the high school program, I'm going to teach you a trade. Well, that's to try to get at that group that is his base, because he cannot give them what he said he was going to give them.
Mhm.
If you try to bring a steel mill back here, it's 5 years before you could get all the pieces together to make a mill that would turn out steel. So all these things that he promised to that group, his base, he's not been able to fulfill. So he has to throw meat, red meat to them.
Mm.
And we are the blacks are part of that red meat. The Hispanics thought family values, all these things, that they were different. And they voted for him. And now he is demonstrating that they have to get out. Now, when you put them out, their jobs are gone. Who's going to fill those jobs?
That's a $54,000 question.
Yes, it's you shiftless, worthless
Mm.
black people. And now we won't be able to pull you. Well, we're going to cut down the benefits
Mm.
so that you won't be able to lay on your rump all day long and just go out and drink soda. Now, why are you drinking soda? Because that's the only drink that's in the little neighborhood grocery store which sells alcohol and that, nothing else. So the other part of that is we're going to make that a part of the labor force. But that group they can't do the work. They physically can't do the work. Now you're going to get prison labor to do the work. You're going to contract that. We did that once before.
Mhm.
But you get passive aggressive behavior in prisoners. And every strawberry has to be picked by hand. How many bushels of strawberries do you think they're going to pick in a day?
Mm.
You can't cut their wages because they don't have any wages. You can't do much with their food because the food is bad anyway. So you talk about passive aggressive behavior, you're really going to get it. This is not the convict labor that they had in the early 20s,
Mhm.
teens
With
and 20s.
parchment farms and what
Yes,
have you.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's not that. Now, the other part of that is we have to think in terms of what we will do. The African proverb is when two elephants fight, the left wing and the right wing are the two elephants fighting. The grass gets trampled. We have to very carefully roll our little piece of sod up and put it to the side so we don't get trampled. Now, how is he attempting to trample? Every time you look up, he's coming up with something new that attacks the Black population.
Mhm.
And he's also taking away for the Black population, which makes the other population, even though I don't have, if you don't have, then I'm satisfied.
Mhm.
Okay? When you look at the zip code for Prince George's County, that zip code used to be the richest county, used to have the housewives of PG County and all the other things going with it. When um, Elon Musk came in the first 2 days, look to see what zip code he just wiped out. You just go down the list and get rid of that zip code. Now, that zip code is one of the poorest in the nation.
207.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. But they have a smart Black governor. He said, as many of you as I can, I will put into the state government. But they know that they have to get rid of him. Now, how are they going to cut him down? He's everything. He's as one of my friends, he even got a Black wife. So I mean, he got everything. Okay. Now, how are you going to get rid of him? Well, someone said we want to do a law on reparations.
Mhm.
Remember when that came up?
Yes, just
That
recently.
divided the Black community, some for him, some against him.
Mhm.
I'm saying to Black people, don't worry about, how many reparation studies have been made in Maryland?
Yeah.
Have you read one of them?
Hmm.
And none of them work. Why? Because the best example is out in California they're going through the courts with.
Mhm.
Look at that one, see how that works, then come up with your study. But you see, there's the success already. You've got some Black people say, I'll never vote for him. Well, that takes away a portion of his
Mm.
potential electorate. So we have to be mindful of what is going on by a system that is determined to push us back 100 years.
Well, Dr. Nichols, now we only have a few minutes left. And you're raising some very important points that I would love to discuss with you in greater detail. So I'll definitely have you back. But let's spend a few minutes talking about this system. Why is this system going through all of these things to continually marginalize people of African ancestry? And why is it that many Black people who've been victims of this system refuse to acknowledge the existence of that system?
Well, because you see, that's the way we are divided all the time. If you go back to Lynch's the Lynch letter,
Oh, the Willie Lynch letter.
well, yeah, not no, just the where he says goodbye, gentlemen. That's the end of it. Don't all that extra has been added on over time. Okay,
Right.
but just the letter itself, he says, keep them divided,
Hmm.
make them love me, the master, and divide it. And that comes from our axiology. The highest value is in the relationship. And if you do something that I perceive as treating me as less than equal, I perceive that you treated me with disrespect, and that destroys the relationship. And that's the dependent variable. That's what they understand. And that's what we have to overcome. We have to say, I don't like you worth a damn. I don't care about you and your mama. But we both have to vote for what is best, the best interest of our say ourselves as Black people. Now sometimes we're not there, but we really have to get there.
Hmm. So, I mean, what you're describing is a predatory relationship where we have constantly been the prey.
Yes.
And so, how do we, the prey, begin to defend ourselves or develop ourselves such that we are no longer preyed upon? Is there a process that we can go through to help strengthen our cultural and cognitive core?
We have to align ourselves with the left wing completely
Mm.
and work with them. They are the elephant fighting, and we can support them, but we behind them and out of the way of their feet, keep from being trampled. All right. So where is he sending troops? He's sending troops to large Black cities with Black mayors. Why? Because that is feeding red meat to his base that still don't have jobs. That's the reality. Keep that base fed. So that's what he does.
Mm.
And of course, the other thing is to get them riled up enough that we'll go into a riot. Then
Hmm.
call in the troops and put us down. Now, a commentary that I heard the other day, which was really beautiful because it fits into the rise of the Third Reich, which is the troops in this. If you get accustomed to having federal troops in your cities, which is Kamitasi against it,
Hmm.
when the elections come, he can declare that the election from any of these cities or places is illegal and seize the ballot boxes and make it what you want it to be.
Mm. So you think that's the end game?
Oh,
Is
that's
that?
what one of the White brothers said. If it's white, it must be right.
Well, look, Dr. Nichols, we only have a few minutes left with you in this portion of our show. I would like for you to give our listeners your suggestions as to what the next logical steps for Black people, Black families, Black communities should be given the circumstances that you outlined for us. We don't just throw up our hands. You suggested that we align ourselves with those in the left, we get behind the elephant. But what are some other things that we could be doing ourselves to strengthen ourselves and strengthen our communities?
Well, we have to educate our children in terms of what the reality is. They have to know as horrible a reality as we have to tell them, but they have to know it. They have to understand it so that they stop fighting each other over this is my turf and that's your turf.
Hmm.
When the landlord says for your mama to move, you don't have any turf. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If these guys that are fighting went back home and they told the parents, get out, where's your turf? You don't have a turf.
Mhm.
So, and the other thing is we have to educate our children about our history. You see, they have lied so much about our history that when you look at what they're teaching in Texas, and a picture of it is a slave ship and a black man in a full suit reaching out hand shaking with a white planter, and he has come as an indentured servant from Africa to learn to farm. What did they do before? How did they live if they couldn't farm before leaving Africa? All right. So these lies, and they pull all these things out of the school and the classroom, our heroes and so on. We should just flood everything possible for our children to see and hear about.
But- No,
Be-
go ahead, complete that thought.
Because if you don't have that, you have no self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever lies they throw to you about you can't do this, you can't do math, you can't do all these things, you've never done anything important, you're just dirt, you believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we teach them who they are, showing them who they are, then they have a better self-concept. They begin to recognize that this is a war and we have to have tools to fight. And
So let's put a pin in this conversation for this moment, but I do want you to hold on because we can go into the overflow room and continue this conversation because you've said some things that I would like for us to explore in a bit more detail. But we've been listening to Dr. Edwin J. Nichols, a clinical and industrial psychologist who has some important ideas and concepts and theories about how to live in this country and how to make the most of the time that we have here. We certainly want to have you back, but what are some recommendations that you would suggest that the listeners read, works of yours or any other material that would be important for them to understand the realities of the world in which we're living in right now here in the United States?
well, there are tons of books. The 1619 is one of
Project.
them. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm trying to look at them right here. Stamped from the beginning.
Stanford Beginnings by Ibrahim Kendi. Hmm.
All right. And I've got so many of them stacked over here, but those are the books that you want to read because they tell you what is the existentialistic reality of now. And you can run off a list of them for them to read.
Hmm.
Uh, I just don't have it at hand right here, but it's
Sure.
on this piled up table over here. But those are the things that they want to read because they begin to develop an understanding of the mechanisms by which we remain oppressed.
Absolutely. Well, look, Dr. Nichols, what I'd like to do is have you compile a list for me, and then I'll share the books on that list with our audience in an upcoming show, and then bring you back at a future date to go over some of those books in that list and discuss how we could apply some of that knowledge to re-educate ourselves. I think that is the key to us changing the relationship that we have with the dominant structure here in the United States and us becoming free enough to do the things that free people are supposed to do. And that is become the masters of our domain as opposed to submitting to the will of others who wish to call themselves our masters.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Well, look, I'd like for you to just stand by for a minute. Let me close out the show, and then we can continue this conversation in the overflow room. I want to thank Dr. Nichols for being my guest on this show, this edition of the Browder File Show, the first show in September. We've got some other exciting guests for you next week. We'll have Dr. Charles Finch on to discuss his new book and a few other special guests that I want to share with my listening audience to help us re-educate ourselves so that we can begin to assume destiny and control of our space here in the United States. So this is Tony Browder with the Browder File Show. I want to thank you for tuning in. And as always, the important thing that we have to remember is that love is at the core of everything that we do, and that love begins with the love for self. So Khalil, take us out with Maurice White, encouraging us to internalize and understand the process that it's all about love. Thank you, and I'll see you next Wednesday.
Beautiful
Peace.
things around you.
Okay, so that's it. We are officially off the air.
Okay.
And I want to thank you, Dr. Nichols. And I would like to take a few moments and drill down a bit more about the re-education you said that's required for the Black community to do. Um, it takes me back to the point in our discussion today where you were talking about your childhood in Detroit.
Mhm.
and you had schools set up with the equipment that you would need, with the spaces and the teachers that were there to instruct the students and prepare them um, to become members of the society. We don't have that anymore. So how do we build? How do we create educational spaces in the spaces that we find ourselves in now?
Well, you see, that's what we have to do. That's what we don't have. It isn't that the churches, you have these churches that have classrooms. They're
Exactly.
empty. They don't, the churches are empty. Now, when people talk about church, well, I'm not, this is not all the religion. But think of it in terms of school. If you think of the Jewish people, they have they have all these little Jewish children learn Hebrew. That's the pretext to learn Hebrew. But you learn Hebrew, so you learn your history.
Hmm.
See? Now, in terms of when I was coming along, we had books that gave us history lessons. And believe it or not, Jet and Ebony
Yes.
had little articles that showed you something that made you,
Hmm. God bless Lerone Bennett. I mean,
yeah.
Bennett gave us our history and easy to understand language and raised our awareness of our past. Yes, indeed.
And not only that, he showed us people that were doing experiment that had done research, and what they discovered that you'd never know that was a black person that had done it.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Okay. See, that's the important thing. And the other part of that is that it shouldn't be preachy.
Mm.
I have a friend out in Portland, Oregon, and for years he's had classes with young black men. They're generally about 12 to when they graduate high school. And every week they come, they have to bring the name of at least one black inventor.
Hmm.
And now that they're not talking about the in Ohio the traffic lights. They
Right. Hmm.
okay. And he was surprised that they were able to find so many and keep bringing in two or three each time they would come in. Now, what that does is it says you have the capacity to do anything.
Hmm.
Now, if you ask someone, have they seen a certain film
Yeah.
about black women that were mathematicians?
Hmm.
I'll give you the name of the film.
Hmm.
And over at your school, Howard, they have a little alley that quotes the name of the film. But the film is not the woman who did the math.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you see, we have taken away from ourselves the name of the person who was actually doing the math and substituted for a film that could be artificial or could be real or could be
Hmm.
make-believe. Do, do you see what I'm talking about?
Sure, sure, sure. Well, let me ask you this question because, as you well know, my interest is in history, in bringing the history that we were never taught in school to our people, raising our awareness. As a psychologist, what what is the best technique that someone like myself could use to re-socialize people of African ancestry living here in America? Um, you said don't be preachy, got that. But what else can we do to increase interest in this very important subject matter, particularly if you said that educating ourselves and becoming aware of our past, of our glorious past before enslavement is critical to us carving out a niche for ourselves in this country.
Okay, I'm going to put you in touch with um, Benson Cook.
I know Benson Cook, yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
all right. He's the guy that's going to review all these books that you're talking about, not Nichols.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
that's number
got it.
one.
Hmm.
Number two, he can tell you about what they did in terms of rites of passage at a Baptist church on the other in Anacostia.
Hmm.
And it ran for enough years. And when the children got to 16 or 17, something like just before high school, or just after, or just at the end of high school, they would go to Ghana for rites of passage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, it was so important that you had little boys, 6 or 7, in church. They'd start scrapping with each other. And someone would walk around, or another person that's in the same group would say, "Oh, you can't do that here. This is sacred ground."
Mm.
So what you're building in is you're codifying behavior by place and brotherhood. See, our children fight each other because there's nothing there to fill the space, to fill the void. And we carry all this anger in our genes. We know the genetic code and how it's transferred. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, but we don't permit it to come out positively. We just let it come out.
Mm.
It's negative. And of course, there's nothing to reinforce positiveness.
Mm.
You sleep on the couch. And the only way you can sleep on the couch is when the last person gets up off the couch from watching TV at 1 or 2 in the morning. You got to sleep on the couch, and then you got to get up to go to school. So you see, there are conditions that are in these Black communities that they're not clear to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So how, in other words, when I think of the 3-room apartment that we lived in this apartment building, when we moved in there were rats, roaches, and chinches,
Mm.
because this had been buildings for white people, Jews primarily, for 50 years. They moved out. These 6.5 rooms, they cut in half. So what was between the living room and the dining room is that now uh, they didn't even have the plasterboard that we have now. It's plywood.
Mm-hmm.
And a door with a frosted glass. Why? Because if there's a fire, you have to be able to go out the front if you're in the back, or the people in the front have to be able to break the glass, open the door, come through your apartment to escape out the back.
Mm.
Now, what sound barrier is there between the 2 apartments? What keeps the roaches from their apartment to crawling under the door to your apartment? Now, my mother, I give her all the credit because she put down boric acid and
Mm.
sugar and lined it all across the walls, and the roaches would come eat it. They would go to wherever the water was and die. And in a very short time, we had no roaches in our little apartment. Every day or so, it's hot summertime, we had a door. Sometimes the door would be open, no screen door, we had a door.
Mm-hmm.
And a rat would jump from under the sink and run across the floor out. And how they got back in, we didn't know. Now, this is a sink that you may not be old enough, but the material that the sink is made of goes up the wall, and the faucets come out from this porcelain, same material as a sink.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, they come out from there.
Yeah.
Okay. My mother kept looks up under there with a candle to see, and finds a nest of rats.
Mm.
The mother rat, upon this, fights my mother. My mother puts us, this is how small we were. My mother is 4'11", 90 pounds, size 2 shoe.
Mm. Size.
Pick,
Okay.
picks us up and puts us on the kitchen table. And then she and the rat fight each other.
Mm.
and she hit that rat with a broom or something with a stick of the broom, and the blood came out. She had broken its back.
Mm.
Okay, that's two of the fighting. All right. Now that she has killed the mother rat, she physically takes her hand, goes up into this hole behind the sink, and pulls all these little pups out and puts them in the toilet and flushes them. But the question is, how did the rats get in there in the first place? So she's got to feel all up in there, and she finds a hole that's in the wall,
Hmm.
and she takes steel wool and
Yep.
stuffs it into the hole. Okay, now we have no rats.
Your mother sounds like she was raised in the same household that my grandmother was raised in.
All right, there
Absolutely. I
you
can
got it.
relate.
You
Hmm.
got it. Okay, now we have a new couch because we have this lovely little apartment, and it opens like this.
Hmm.
And my sister sleeps on the soft mattress side, and I sleep on the spring side because boys are tough, and that's okay. And I start crying in the night. My parents come out, and there are chinches,
Mm.
but the couch is brand new. So where are they coming from? Well, now in my generation, we had Uncle Barney. Now, if the social worker asks, is this maternal, a paternal aunt, or uncle? Neither. It's just Uncle Barney, okay?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, what he says, the chinches are under the wallpaper,
Mm.
layers and layers of wallpaper. That's where they are.
Mm.
He takes a putty knife and hits it, pulls up. You can see some.
Mm.
Well, how are you going to get them out from under there? He says to my mother, take the valve out of the radiator, let the steam fill the room. Had a little hot plate. He was boiling water, put the towel in there, and then put it onto the wall. The walls are now drippy. Put this extra water on there, and there's enough to loosen the glue that you can scrape the wallpaper off.
Mm.
My mother scrapes all the wallpaper off in this nasty little three-room apartment, goes to the hardware store, gets her a gallon of paint, and paints from the floor up as high as she can reach. And when Daddy comes home, he reaches and does the ceiling. We have no roaches, no chinches, no rats, nothing. Now you have to keep it clean because people on the other side
Hmm.
aren't as clean. So you keep that little barrier of boric acid and sugar across the door where their roaches and things would come across. Now, my mother went to the World's Fair and came back and painted the apartment. What was it? Chinese red and yellow or something. It was such cognitive dissonance it scared us all to death. But anyway, she was making it as modern as she could. But I'm
Okay.
sharing that with you because now, in terms of the money, my mother was a licensed beautician.
Mm.
Okay. Now, she was a nurse, but she couldn't practice as a nurse because she had done her nursing in Canada.
Mm.
It's across the river, and she was black. The only black nurses they would hire would be the night nurses
Mm.
in some hospitals, not all. So they're not going to hire her as a nurse. So she works as a beautician. Now, as working as this beautician, she makes extra money. I can remember that she used to have to leave the sheets in the wash tub, you know,
Hmm. Hmm. I
in
remember.
Detroit, Michigan,
Mm.
until my daddy came home. And he would ring one way and she would ring the other way. Okay. Because she couldn't ring it all out by herself.
Sure.
There are only a few things that she couldn't do by herself, but that was it. Within a very short time, we got an easy EASY washing machine with an automatic wringer.
Mhm. I remember those that you turned by hand,
No,
right?
no, this one we did.
Oh,
This is
this was automatic.
no,
Oh, you must have
oh,
had
yeah,
some serious money.
high end, high end. Okay. The next thing was everyone had an ice box,
Hmm.
and the man would bring 25 pounds or a 50-pound block of ice and put it in your ice box. We were the first to get a refrigerator, a General Electric refrigerator.
Hmm.
And that thing lasted because you don't slam the door on the refrigerator, you close it. Everybody's slamming, and after a while, their door isn't working. Ours, even till we left home grown, it was still
Mm.
working. It was down
Okay.
in the basement for beer and what have you, have a party. So, what I'm sharing with you is that we took what we had and made accommodations. Okay. Now, the difference between Northern blacks and Southern blacks went to college. Northern blacks finished high school, went to the factory, because you could make enough money in the factory that more than you could make if you
Hmm.
went. The few blacks that did go to college were discouraged because they couldn't get the job doing what they were trained to do.
Sure. Hmm.
Okay. So you have that disproportion of black intelligentsia that you don't have with the northern group. Then after a while, the northern group kids start going to college too, in larger numbers.
Hmm.
But the reason was in the South, you still had to have a black doctor, a black dentist, you had to have black teachers and everything.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you this, and I'm not going to keep you much longer. And I've noticed during the time that we spent together, I have not seen you take one drink of water. So when our time is done, I want you to hydrate yourself, my friend. All
Okay.
right. Um, what you're a psychologist, you understand the thinking of people, the logic that people use to shape their realities. What kind of thinking, what type of logic must one possess in order to create the environment that we have lived in here in the United States of America? I mean, I have come to the conclusion that the people who created these systems that our parents and grandparents had to endure and survived, but yet there's still obstacles placed in our way, in our children's way, and will be placed in our grandchildren's way. I'm convinced that these people who created these systems are not people and that they lack a soul, they lack compassion. How do you deal with such a creature, such that you can ultimately create a space where you can have, where you can live in peace and comfort? Is that possible? And what do you
Well,
call these creatures? How do you deal with these creatures?
your friend, isn't he the one that told us about the pituitary gland in the white people being
Who's
dried
that?
up?
Richard King?
Yeah, the doctor that worked in Korea or Vietnam and did all the autopsies and told us that I think it was pituitary gland, was
Yeah,
it?
the pituitary gland was
Calcified,
calcified. It had atrophied, right?
atrophy.
Hmm.
Well, why? Why would it atrophy?
Well, I can only think because there was some biological defect which prevented blood flow, oxygen into that portion of the brain, and it atrophied. And so that the absence of that blood flow or the life force, I'm answering my own question, and Doc, you did a very good job of throwing it back at me. So, but okay, well, okay. So
Okay,
so
so
I know the answer to my question,
yeah,
but I
there,
want.
there, yeah, there are certain if you look at what was necessary for them to survive as a group of people up to even recent times
Mhm.
with droughts and storms and everything you could imagine, and they survived in that hostile northern situation. It breeds a group of people that the object is what you go for. The hell with everything else.
Sure.
That's what you have to have.
Okay.
And whatever's necessary to get it, it's your survival.
So I take it then they won't change. They're incapable of change because of how they have
Survive.
evolved, how
Yeah.
they have survived, right? So they're incapable of change. So what the hell do we do? I mean, it's since we know that this is an abusive relationship, and it's foolish for us to think that at some point in time in the future, our abuser will no longer take advantage of us, right? So what is it that we have to do now in order to change this relationship once and for all?
I don't think we'll ever be able to change it once and for all here.
Okay.
And the reason is, as close as we get to the change, they change the rules.
Yeah, true.
We had the Voting Rights Act, the this act, the this act, and the this act.
Mm-hmm.
Just as we were beginning to move to push for equity,
Mm-hmm.
diversity, and so on, cut it off. Not stop it, moderate it, or something, just eliminate it.
Sure.
Okay. So then you have to then start over. Now, think of the people who live in Prince George's County. They have these beautiful places where you look at the fireplaces 3 stories on up or 2 stories up high, and this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful living room and all of this. And they're not able to pay the mortgage.
Sure. Yeah.
So what is going to happen to them?
Well, I was at a local restaurant in Silver Spring, Montgomery County, and the restaurant owner shared with me that there was a gentleman, there was a guy, there was a brother, not a gentleman, a brother sitting at the bar. He was rather despondent, and he engaged him in conversation. And the guy said that his roommate was a friend from college who had recently lost his job, and his wife had left him. He had to move in with his friend. He's got child support. He's got all of these other obligations, and felt so lost that he attempted suicide, and that his friend had come home early from work that day and found him, called the paramedics, and they took him to Holy Cross Hospital. So I've heard similar stories of people for whom their job was their identity. And in the absence of that job, they don't know who they are and they don't know where to go. So it's clear that Elon Musk and his associates don't give a damn about people.
Well, do you think they did that just by chance?
No, no, no. No, of course not. I mean, it was part of a plan,
Yes,
and we now know that those plans were developed by very intelligent, wealthy people who work at the Heritage Foundation,
yes,
who put various systems and individuals in place in order to execute this plan. And
yes.
so they will continue to behave in that way until they are met by equal and opposing force. And I'm just wondering how we create that equal and opposing force. Now, let me go back. And here's my question. You stated earlier that the best bet for us would be to align ourselves behind the left wing that is engaged in this fight with the right wing. But we also know from experience that that left wing would turn on us too.
Oh yes, oh yes, yeah, yeah. But you have to turn. You have to think in terms of the alternatives, which is better,
Okay, okay.
which is a better alternative. A little, mistreatment or death.
Yeah, right. Slow death versus a quick death. Okay.
Yeah, yes,
Hmm.
you know. So that's the reality of that. The
Hmm.
What is important is that our children have an understanding of who they are and what their capacities are, and an opportunity. The opportunity is what they have to have
Yes.
to
Hmm.
develop it. And once they have that imprinted in their minds, there's no stopping them.
Sure.
There's no stopping them. But right now, the system is designed through commercials, through radio programs, through these little blurbs on the Facebook and what have you,
Social media. Yes.
social media, constantly telling them that they are, you know, nobody.
Hmm.
Okay? And with that information, what if you're nobody, then and you're no good, well, then anything that you do is no good. So why
Yeah.
try to do something different when you're already labeled? But there's a young man who just finished his dissertation, and he was talking about the difference in the concept of hope that he engendered in the young 19-year-old to 21 or 22, that he was engendering hope into their aspirations,
Hmm.
and how much progress was made once you engendered that there was the possibility that they could do more. And some of them moved out. Some of them didn't make it, but that's one of the dissertations that I'm reading now. Sometimes this month he will get his PhD because he has publications out of that. Two national journals have published his articles. That's the new one aspect of the new PhD program at UTC.
Okay.
But you have two published papers. But I think we're going back to the dissertation because published papers is when you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, or knowing the right journal to submit, that works out well. But there are not enough of us that know enough journals,
Sure.
what have you. But
Okay.
that's neither here nor there. But the idea, Tony, I'm a person of faith, and that's what sustains me.
Sure.
Okay. And without that, I would just be an empty vessel. But with that, I have enough to move on.
Mm-hmm.
My belief system is I'll always have enough
Mm-hmm.
to carry on, to move on, to do what I can do and
Okay.
to serve.
Well, I appreciate that. And obviously, your faith has sustained you quite well.
Thank you.
And there is value in faith. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I am a person who feels the need to do more. And I'm always looking for ways that I can do whatever I do better and find people who can help me do it better and introduce those people to others who wish to do better as well. So I appreciate the time that we've spent together over the past 40 years
Mhm.
and really appreciate the time that you have shared with me today. And I look forward to us coming back and continuing this conversation in the near future.
Okay. Good
I,
deal.
I value your wisdom and your friendship. So thank you so much, Dr. Nichols.
That goes both ways. Thank you.
All right. Drink some water.
Yes, I'll go do I'll
Okay.
hydrate right now.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll send you the link for this program by tomorrow and feel free to share it with whomever. Okay.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so